used words like highly combustible and mutually abusive to describe the marriage of former football star Colin Ridgway and his wife Joan. And when Colin was shot 7 times in their Texas home, some people believe Joan was the one who pulled the trigger, even though cops don't consider her a suspect. Steve Dunleavy sat down with the widow at the center of it all.
Texas Stadium, home to the almighty Dallas Cowboys, mecca to a million dreams. Now, a young super athlete by the name of Colin Ridgway, from my home country, Australia, wanted a chunk of those dreams. And miraculously, he succeeded. And yet, if he had failed, he'd be alive today. As a punter for the Dallas Cowboys, he was a rollicking, roisterous jock who liked his beer cold and his women hot. And then the party was over.
I lost a good friend, and you don't have many good friends. I lost a playmate.
The kind of person would, he wouldn't shake your hand after he got to know you, he'd hug you.
And Colin Ridgway, the kid from down under, the youngest Olympic high jumper in the world, hugged people a lot.
He was just a personality, not because he was a football player, but it was just because it was him. Very gregarious.
It was that special lust for life that riveted this woman, Joan Arnold, to the hulking Aussie 20 years ago, then a veteran of the Dallas Cowboys. Today, Joan talks painfully in a whisper, the legacy of a frightening car accident that crushed her vocal cords.
In walked this man that was 6'6", shoulders, big chest, and he was all you could see, really. Everyone else looked like a midget next to him. And apparently he liked redheads.
He liked redheads, and she liked Colin Ridgway, so much that she became Mrs. Ridgway 4 years later in 1977. They entered into a tumultuous marriage that had all Dallas society tongues wagging. But she sees it in a different way.
I didn't need anyone. My life was so perfect.
But Colin's friends, Joe and Suzanne Humphrey and DJ White, believe it was one of the most imperfect unions they ever saw. Something out of JR's Dallas.
She was always saying negative things about him, whether it was that he beat her constantly or that he was a terrible businessman or that he dealt drugs. And
it was the strangest relationship that I've ever seen in my life.
The two of them would fight in front of other people. I mean, it just didn't seem to care.
The caring between Colin Ridgway's friends and Joan ended exactly a year ago, one night in the posh University Park neighborhood.
pretty brutal, real brutal.
And, of course, blood on the floor.
In the last minutes of his life, Colin Ridgway and his wife, Joan, would arrive home at their townhouse together, but in separate cars. Colin would walk through the front door and up the front steps. Joan would drive down a side alley to the back of the house. What happened next turned into a grim, chilling, but classic murder mystery. Police believe Colin reached the top of an inside staircase as a dim light streamed through the window. And then he looked death in the face. His wife, Joan, says she came through the back entrance minutes later, oblivious to the tragic scene that would confront her.
I saw that it was Colin, and he was breathing. He was breathing deep, deep breaths. His body was moving, and I was on the floor. And he was face down. His back was the only thing I could see. And I grabbed him, and I said, "Colin, are you all right?" And he just kept heaving, and so I ran in, and I dialed on my portable phone. "Please hurry."
Is there somebody in the house with you?
Well, my bedroom's torn up, and he's on the floor. I thought he had finally suffered a heart attack or a stroke coming up the stairs.
Basically, the back of his head was blown off. How could you stand there and look at somebody laying on the ground in that condition thinking that they had a heart attack? I mean, that didn't make any sense to me.
Go to hell, you sons of bitches. You know what happened. You got all the secrets. You got all the answers, and quit blaming me. Gossip is that I did it. Well, can you see me? The gossip is that I did it.
Colin Ridgway's friends have taken the drama further than gossip against the woman who has been charged with nothing, and as far as authorities go, not even been named as a suspect.
I can't logically come to a conclusion other than she has some sort of involvement in it.
And there were, you know, a dozen different explanations that coming from her mouth of, you know, who actually did this. Blame was, you know, everywhere, but in the mirror.
But a close friend of Joan's, Sabra Bicking, typifies this bitter blood feud that has split this high society neighborhood.
I know in my heart, and I know Joan well enough to know that she's not capable of this kind of thing.
Do you think this crime will ever be solved by the cops?
No, I don't. I think they're so focused on her that the real killer's getting away.
And another of Joan's closest friends, Lisa Luby, lashes out at those who point the finger at the woman who officials have accused of nothing.
Could she have done what they say she did? No. Joni couldn't do that because of her relationship with God.
I wanted to go hold him. I wanted to go just lay on top of his body and wrap myself around it and hold him and feel whatever he's feeling and save him and pray over him.
Joan Ridgway goes back to the last supper they had together in a restaurant only minutes before the murder.
I didn't know this man that night. I'd never seen Colin. Just falling apart on the inside and literally scared. I mean, afraid to talk. And he said, my biggest fear is dying, Joan.
Joan believes her husband was involved in smuggling drugs from Mexico and that business associates killed him after ransacking their townhouse.
The only thing that had been dumped upside down in my closet were business records and personal records.
Here at the University Park Police Precinct, cops brought in the FBI to do a psychological profile of the killer or killers. In the report, the feds say this was no burglary gone awry. No, the killer or killers knew Colin Ridgway. They also add that the murderer and his associate are right now under a great deal of stress because of this investigation. Of course, so far, no arrest.
I'm satisfied the way it's going right now. Very professional investigation.
I miss my friend. He's dead, and I think she killed him.
They accused me of murdering him. I mean, Colin could have killed me with the flip of his wrist.
Friends of the former Dallas Cowboy claim that the night before his murder, Colin announced he was going to divorce Joan, which they allege led to what they say was her motive.
He was worth more dead than alive.
Susan Humphrey is talking about large insurance policies that Joan and Colin took out on each other just a few months before his murder. Some of your detractors point to an insurance policy, $570,000.
So what? What does that have to do with his murder? I mean, everybody gets insurance. I mean, don't they?
The investigation into Ridgway's murder is continuing. His friends have put up a $50,000 reward for any information.